There was a failed people leader.
We should be live now if I've done this right. I probably haven't. I do see a chat.
Oh, how do I like wait? Oh yeah, you're
All right.
live. 10 people are watching.
Hooray. Oh no, that's too many. That's too many. We need fewer. Some people leave. Just kidding. Please stay. Yeah, for everybody watching right now, um, I've never done a live stream before, and we're just gonna see how this goes. If you're wondering why is this so awkward, that's at least 50% of the reason. Um, Also,
Whoa,
this is
look
not
at
a
Indy's
filter.
void.
Yeah, everybody is in a real location except for me. Um, is the sound quality okay? Is the video quality okay? Nice. Thank you, Mac. Thank you. I thought I
Discord
turned
thinks
those
it's
off.
great.
How did that happen?
I don't know. I really
Do
thought I
I
turned those
like
off.
is it
It
the
only
thumbs up?
works for Sam.
Oh,
But yeah, chat, audio sound okay? You can see all of us moving our eyebrows. We're not big chunks of pixels. Okay, nice. Um, cool. So we're gonna have, I think, one more person joining, and then our nice little four corners layout is going to be disrupted. Um, but it's also going to be so unusual for me to see the chat reacting to stuff that happened like 30 seconds ago.
Hmm.
That's an experience that all streamers have that I have never had, but I know it exists as an internet person. Um, well, sweet. Do people want to like introduce themselves? Because I know all of you too well, but the people in the chat may not know you at all.
We love an introduction. The question is who goes first?
I think now it's you.
Yeah, probably is me. Yeah, I did that. That was a volunteer. That was kind of like an
Yeah,
invitation.
it was slick.
Um, Thank you. Yeah, I'm Will Webb. I go by Indie Tricks on YouTube, a name which feels increasingly out of date. I started off video essays. I was told by the app 10 years ago. Yikes. So I've been doing it for a long time, but I'm joining this chat not because I know these guys, or that's also the case, but largely because I was one of the co-editors on the BFI Sight and Sound Best Video Essays of the Year list this year and last year.
Right. The BFI list makes me want to share my screen so that the people who aren't familiar with the list can have some context. I am too afraid to mess with anything that I have done here. If anyone in the call is willing to like screen share so that we can like see the BFI list, but for
I
the
have not prepared my desktop for that.
I was gonna say a
yeah,
thing for which we should have planned.
quick everybody
Yeah,
hide all of your
yeah,
Discord roleplay servers.
yeah.
Um, well, I can also. Why would I say this? Hey, Will, what is the BFI best video essays of blank current year list?
Oh, beautiful.
Yay. Okay, I can do this. This is way better.
Will, you're muted.
Thanks so much. I was doing so well as well by having shared the tab correctly. Um, yeah, the Sight and Sound Best Video Essays of 2024 list is an attempt, I guess, to kind of reflect what's going on in what we call the videographic criticism landscape, to use a very big term. But it is really a kind of collation of different voters from across the kind of academic end of video essays, where it began, and the YouTube end, which is where we are very firmly, I think. And it takes 183 essays this year, voted for by 47 voters from across that kind of field. Yeah, and they all have to be from 2024, but often people just don't follow that rule. So there you go.
I am guilty of that. I've nominated for the BFI Best Video Essays list, I think 2 years now, and I have always included one from the previous year because I'm an asshole.
Think it allows for stuff that was in December the year before because that's when the poll is gathered. And so a really big example of that this year was the H Bomber Guy video about plagiarism came out in December 2023 in a true kind of like middle finger to people who gather polls like this, I think. So we ended up talking a lot about a video from 2023 in this introduction.
The
I
sense that I got is that. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sam.
no, you.
I was just gonna say the sense that I got was that H Bomber Guy was just desperate to release a video in the calendar year 2023, had to
Oh,
sneak
was
it
that
in
the
right at the
only
end.
H-bomb video of the year?
I believe it was.
That's a fun one.
And
Quite a
then
good
we
while.
didn't get one last year, correct? We didn't get one, most
We
entitled.
yes, we were not served
We, who
a video.
deserve H bomb content constantly.
Um, I want to talk about that video so badly and like my inclusion of that video in the list and everybody else's picks for the list. But I also maybe feel now like should we do should we finish up intros like rapid fire?
Sure.
If people watch my channel, they will have interacted with stuff made by everyone here because everybody here has read my scripts, watched my drafts, straight up like written some of the lines or done like guest voices. So Max, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I also do video essays on YouTube over at Max Teeth. I also voted for the first time this year in the BFI poll, which was very fun. Didn't know we could break the rules. Wish somebody had told me that before that I could put
You just do it.
2023 essays in there. I know, I shouldn't have even I should have just, you know, people will put whatever. I guess people just put like straight up movies in there too.
People put movies on
Um,
there, and people will even show stuff from like I think the longest ago one we had. Someone gave something from like the mid '80s, and their argument
oh,
was they
okay.
had seen it this year and they watched it on YouTube, so that was fine. Which I kind of was like, yeah, okay.
I mean, it is kind of fair that like I can never put like tongues untied. I almost said tongues united, like that typo. But I can never put that on my list. It's just off limits to me.
I
Um,
mean, if you vote again next year,
I'm writing this down. Yeah,
My
I
my
will.
best video essay of 2025 is an illuminated manuscript from 1317.
I'm gonna in the afternoon call, I think I'm gonna make everybody take a shot every time somebody alludes to what is a video essay. Um, which I
Okay,
believe is what
well,
we're
I'm
doing
not gonna
right
do
now.
that. No, no, no. It's not happening. I
We'll
think
all
that's it
die.
for me.
We would all die. I guess to give some more context, folks who nominate to the BFI list are folks who have been nominated in the past and or I don't know how necessarily you include folks, but it just kind of creates this massive, massive, massive list of works that a lot of people have been touched by, who just are way, 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 way more tuned into the video essay space than we probably should be. We should go do other things. But yeah, it's nice to have a list at the end of the year of works that we may have missed out on because video essay is so, so, so large to the point that yeah, we just can't even define what it means. Yeah, I can start posting
I'll go
everybody's
next.
channels in the chat. If, yeah, Josh, go ahead and
Yeah,
introduce yourself.
I'm Josh. I am Dad Nuke of the Nuclear Family, or the Nukes, because I have the most needlessly complicated channel name on YouTube. I also make video essays, and I cause problems for Sam's video essays. I think it's my
Ha!
primary role.
Yeah, just typing out that I'm gonna put in the description everybody's channels. I think that's a good idea.
Smart.
Yeah, Josh has probably been my most consistent collaborator on video essays, and we have definitely, we've helped each other out a lot. We've also caused each other a lot of struggle and heartache, and um, yeah, sometimes collaborating, I think, allows us to make the best stuff that we've ever made, and sometimes collaborating makes us go, oh, my friend has just left, 8 paragraphs worth of feedback on this video that I thought was done. Uh, Maybe I'll go lay in bed for 3 days.
Yep. And I think I feel like that has to go together. Like sometimes the way that we make the best thing we can make is that somebody has to tell us this is not the best thing you can make, even when we want to be told that what we've made is perfect. And I think we've both done that to each other on more than one occasion.
And then we've both had to have like the post feedback apology call. We've
Yeah.
both done that. Um, the no, your work is really good. I'm sorry I went too hard. I got too excited about my own ideas, and this isn't about me. Um,
This is hitting too close to home right now.
I'm remembering like a specific call around this time last year, I think, where um, oh my, yeah, we have a long history. We have a long history, Josh.
Well, in this particular, this most recent time, poor Max was also involved in the conversation, like the kid at the dinner table while mom and dad are fighting.
Yeah, it was new to me.
Um, Josh and I realized at some point that we have the exact same brain, and that allows us to be very, very, very good at working together. And it also creates this constructive interference where our specific brain deficits line up perfectly. um, at some point, I really wanted to chat about what it was like working together to make the Tears of the Kingdom video essays, because I should also state my intentions for this live stream as I continue to interrupt our introductions. Um, all of us, the 5 of us, and then the people I'm going to be talking to in the afternoon, we get together really frequently to just talk about why we love video essays, why we hate video essays, what excites us and stresses us out about the current state of video essay, and the current state of YouTube. And I thought, like, I know that a lot of you people watching care about this space just as much as we do. And so I kind of wanted to maybe get used to the idea of having some of these conversations a little more publicly, because I think that the way we all get better as artists and as viewers, and the way a medium evolves, is by bringing a lot of this feedback out into the world. I think fiction writers have been very good at this for a long time. Like, we've all, if any fiction writer has probably read Stephen King's On Writing, or something similar that's kind of instructive. Here is how we do our craft. And I think video essay is maybe at a point where it would benefit from that. I say as if we don't hear opinions about video essay all day long, but I like my opinions. Do you want to introduce yourself, Dot, so that I can stop interrupting our intros?
Well, first things first, I need to introduce my microphone. Is it working okay?
It sounds beautiful.
Ah, fantastic. I'm so glad to hear that. We had a little issue an hour ago when we were doing the test. Uh, I'm 10 o'clock dot. My name in real life is Max, and on my Vimeo channel I go by Max, but around here I better go by Dot, otherwise we get confused. So, and then I joined YouTube back in 2005 when people were treating it like a photo bucket, and so I never made a real YouTube channel. I just sort of dropped videos there occasionally. Yeah, I'm I guess one of the elder essayists here who was originally in the academic world and sort of straddled the line between the video essay library and the academic side. Obviously, Will does that too, and there are a few other people here who straddle that line as well. And in recent years, I haven't been as active, but it's only because other things in my life have been taking up my attention. So yeah.
I hear you.
But I
Yeah,
still have lots of opinions.
that's why I'm very happy to have you here. Dot is one of the people who's consulted on some of my scripts in the past, and usually what will happen is I will think that I'm completely done with something, and then he will go, "Did you read this one obscure article that covers exactly what you're talking about, but it does a better job and defines a term that you have been struggling to think of?" And I go, "Damn it, thank you." But that's part of what makes this so hard.
Yeah. I have those exact same issues of getting really excited about a topic as soon as it's placed in front of me. And practically every bit of feedback I ever give is meant to be constructive, but sometimes it runs away into this world of, I don't know, if you're on the receiving end, you might think that I'm telling you that you did a bad job, but really I'm just saying, let's both solve this amazing problem together. I love it. Thank you for getting me started on it. And I think that's the spirit of collaboration that a lot of video essayists have. It just doesn't always come across that way.
I think that's part of the like same brainness that I will sometimes feel like I'm experiencing with other video essayists. And yeah, sometimes where like feedback can get out of hand or whatever. Because the way that I have described being friends with other video essayists to my non-video essay friends is um, basically I have in my pocket this little collection of people who are all differently obsessed with interesting topics. And I think that that makes you guys very interesting to talk to. Um, Josh has his like telecommunications act of what is it, 1984? I can't tell you this because I'm not obsessed with it, but
1996.
1996. All right, of course I say 1984. It And I think that that's how some of the best video essays that we've made have gotten made. It's like we just get way too excited about something. Um, I always tell people that like the Breath of the Wild stamina wheel video, I was, um, am I allowed to say that I was on drugs? I was not on drugs. I was hanging out with my friends and um, they were playing Breath of the Wild, and I was just sitting on the couch with them, going on and on and on about how much I liked the stamina wheel. And at some point, I realized I need to shut up in real life and take this obsession online, put it into a video. And I figured that nobody would watch it. I was like, this is just my own little pet thing. I enjoy this way too much. Nobody else would. But, that's the other fun thing about YouTube is that you guys are all very weird, all you viewers who watch this stuff, and I appreciate all of you. I'm wondering if anybody wants to uh, lead the charge in talking about their BFI picks this year, because I want to talk about like how we kind of see the video essay landscape in 2024, and maybe pain points that we've talked about. I know it's kind of awkward because like we all want to be very positive and very constructive and very collaborative, but um, I think we can look at, highs and lows, positives and negatives.
Sam, do you want to? I think you might be the only person that can post links in the chat. So do you want to post the link to the BFI list as well?
Okay, if I click into Chrome, does that destroy everything?
Oh, I don't know.
In the meanwhile, I was going to say you might as well stream the webpage that you were sharing a moment ago with the list on it, and maybe we just go through.
That works too.
Oh, that was Will.
Oops.
Okay, go through alphabetically, and we can just. I'm sorry, Will. I guess that means you're last. But
No, it's fine because I did not. In fact, I was a very bad video essay poll runner and did not actually put in my own pick this year. Partly because I
Ooh.
was too busy doing the poll.
Well, feel
I
free to
also
feel free to
care about
identify.
watching them.
I was going to say, feel free to identify one or two that you discovered thanks to putting together the poll, and do that in, in lieu of your own picks. But we could just sort of scroll through it, and as we arrive at people, go that way. That just makes sense to me.
Who'd be like mathematically first? I think it's going to be Josh, right? Did Josh vote this year?
Yes, I did. I think alphabetically,
There
it's
we go.
probably me.
Oh, nice. There you go.
There I am in yet another of my names. Um, so I come to the video essay as it says. I the reason that I became a video essayist, I think, is maybe different from a lot of people. A lot of people, I think, come to the video essay from a background in film, which I do not have. Um, but I have an MFA in creative nonfiction. Like, I started out as an essayist, like with words and stuff. And increasingly, I felt like the things that I loved about essay as a genre, like, had largely moved to YouTube. And so the things that I love about essays are the things in the essays that I chose, that sort of take the things that I like most are things that people that start with an interesting question or a thing that they maybe don't understand and try to make sense of it. Um, so, Sam, do you want us to talk about all of them, or you just want us to have sort of like an overview? What is your vision?
I think that if there's anything that really stuck out to you about your picks that you kind of want to share with people, I also am going to say that at some point in the future, I would like to focus my efforts on a super meta video essay about video essays, because I've been having a lot of video essay like doom and gloom thoughts over the past year, that I have shared with everybody here. Um, those thoughts are I guess mostly gone, or I am creating in spite of them. So um, I'm going to be clipping out any stuff we chat about and potentially moving that into a larger essay. So um, I guess use
Neat.
that
So
to
we're all content,
seed
right?
your.
We're all
Sorry?
just like nuggets of content for you.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah. That is
I look
how I
forward
think
We're
to
of
all quite
being a
you.
eager to.
YouTube short
Guys,
on your channel.
Uh-huh. You are you are all content in my eyes.
So I think all of the videos that I chose sort of start with, like, the reason that they caught my attention and the reason that they stood out to me was that they went to places where maybe the essayists didn't intend at the beginning, or they started with a problem or a question. So Kai's video, the problem with the death of Slim Shady, they start the video talking about the new Eminem album and how they sort of don't really like any of the songs. And then they give their rating for the album, and it's surprisingly high. And so the video then ends up sort of exploring, well, if I didn't like the album, oh, there they are. If I didn't like or if I didn't like the songs, how is it that I like the album? And that sort of leads them into an exploration of, what is an album and how do albums work? And I think the place that they land makes sense of the sort of question they had at the beginning.
Talking about me behind my
Um,
back, Josh.
that's right. Um, The Verity Ritchie video on the queer history of Lord of the Rings starts with a question of, like, what are the influences on Tolkien's work in the Lord of the Rings? And that sort of zooms into, like, well, what about this particular aspect? And then it turns into, was Tolkien familiar with this very specific uh, fable or folk tale? And then the amazing thing about that particular video is that they're able to find an answer that is incredibly concrete, and, like, I don't want to spoil it, but, like, the answer that they find is definitely not what they sort of set out to. Um, The Lady Emily video is a Nebula Plus video that I think is a sort of throwaway, like, or maybe intended as a throwaway, like bonus content to a larger video about kitchen nightmares. And in truth, I do not now and have not ever cared about kitchen nightmares, so I didn't even watch the larger video. But it it started off feeling like it was about making fun of a bad video, or a bad sandwich, more concretely. And it ended up being a sort of larger argument about how cooking content works. Um, the James Rolfe video, hopefully everybody has watched it. I think it is probably high on the list of videos that feel pretentious to people. I can't look at it as a filmmaker because I have never been one of those. Um, but to me, what I love about that is that it was a video about somebody who was like, it at first it obviously appears to be about James Rolfe, and it appears to be a criticism of another creator. Um, but as the video goes on, it becomes clear that what Olson is doing is using his tools and skills as a filmmaker to critique not really James Rolfe, but his own identity as a filmmaker, his own self doubt, his own sense of his own limitations. The things that he sees in Rolfe that he is criticizing are the things that he fears about himself. Um, and I think that, like, the turning inward and the sort of self-criticism that is present in that essay is one of the things that are um, most essential about the essay.
I want
Uh,
to, if it's okay for me to point to something that we
of
were discussing
course,
yesterday. I noticed that you used the word pretentious. Um, and you sent me an essay yesterday, and you said, I have a lot of thoughts about this. The essay was called like the worst video essay I've seen on YouTube. And um, I don't know if I'm necessarily going to bother sharing it, but it attempted to categorize video essays into what was it? There was like um, the content mill, just kind of, oh, this thing happened on Twitter. I'm going to make 7 videos about it. And then the second category was pretentious. And then the third was actually interesting, which, if I was going to attempt to create a taxonomy of video essays, I don't know if those are the 3 that I would use. But um, I guess I want to maybe bring us back in this conversation later to the idea of like pretentiousness, because I think that's how a lot of people see video essays. For a while, I think that the people would define video essays as, oh, it's commentary, but pretentious.
hmm
There's definitely a school of video essays that are like, when someone puts a novel on the title of a book and it's like, yeah, I know. It's okay, you don't have to tell me.
um, if you want to, I guess, finish up your video, this is another thing, is like we've never really like done this before for people who are not just each other. So this is, I think, going to be a learning experience. I'd like to do more of these talks in the future. And I think that we're just going to be learning what works and what doesn't. Um, if you want to finish out your list, Josh, but I'm not sure that we'll go through necessarily everybody's picks, because
Sure. I
I'll
feel
make
like
sure to
I'm
put the list in the
talking.
description.
Yeah, I feel like I'm talking too much, and I think it's an accident of the alphabet that the jabberiest person happened to come first. So forgive me. Um, Horse's video, very good. Um, and then I'll let Max maybe talk, hopefully, about their forthcoming video in Monstrum later. Do we have any idea when it will be forthcoming yet, Max?
Not December. I was wrong
Yeah,
about that.
yeah.
I don't know.
Hopefully
I need to like check
December.
my email, which I've been putting off. So I'll
It
should I
is
check my
it
email
is
live on stream and see if
yes.
they're like hey, please respond.
Get on the phone and call the editors while we're on stream. Max has a video forthcoming in Monstrum about we're all going to the World's Fair, and it is an incredibly cool video that hopefully Sam will tell you all about when it comes out. Like, because I want to get as many eyes on this as possible when it happens. It's just a super cool video.
Thanks.
All right, now I can stop talking.
Like that, Josh, all of your picks are like in my head, like super reflective of your work, where they're like they use one piece of media as like a jumping off point and then go somewhere unexpected with it. And I always think about I am terrible at remembering the names and titles of things. But that video that you spent so long on that had like the really long timeline in it, just to talk about like the idea of the one hit wonder and kind of like its institutional racism was like, yeah, just a really you kind of focus for this section of the poll.
Well, I do think like me, unfortunately.
Isn't that strange?
I think that that was a bit of a meta in popular video essays for a while, and again, it feels, I guess, cliche to bring it up at this point, but we can't really just get away from how the heavy hitters in video essay have influenced the space. Like, I can't just sit here and pretend that H. Bomber Guy has not been extremely influential in video essay. Like, he's been extremely influential in how I make video essays, and what I like and what I want to see. And I think definitely part of the video essay meta was, oh, look at this very simple surface thing. I'm going to dive so deep, and I'm going to explore that for 4 hours and take it to very unexpected places. And I think part of, I don't know, I hate being the negative Nancy in these calls. Usually I'm kind of the negative Nancy. Um, I think that it's really easy for us to see that something was done and that we liked it. And then this feels so much better to say on just like a little private call, not like broadcast to YouTube. Frequently, it'll seem like the video essay space changes based on some of these videos that work really well. And then it'll seem like sometimes those get taken to places where they are maybe not quite as effective, where the form is similar, but the function is not similar, or the topic maybe didn't warrant being presented in the way that it was. I don't know if
It's
that was
interesting
too
because
vague.
there's no, I mean those trend things though are interesting because there's like that whole other half of video essays that like almost nothing changes ever, which is the academic side, and that's almost worse in some ways. Like there's less of a responsiveness in terms of style. There have been some shifts recently, which is interesting. It's in my opinion largely like younger video essayists in the academic world who are more kind of present online as well, and so they're kind of bringing in what I would call like stylistic elements into otherwise quite academic video essays, which is quite an interesting shift there, and in a way brings it back further towards where essay films started off as films, and the filmmaking kind of comes to the fore a bit. That kind of H Bomber Guy style of video essays never like set me alight massively, although I think his essays are good. I just because I think that like the more that you're on screen in a video essay, I'm always a bit like, what extent is this video essay? That's the second mention, by the way, so the shot for everyone on the call. Do you mind if I talk about the poll a bit, just from my perspective, because I've got to bounce at
Oh,
7 my time.
yeah.
Yeah, it might be a nice kind of like description of it anyway, because I did not put in any noms at all. I had a kind of like growing list in my head, and then what happened was is that I started working on taking in everyone else's votes, and I was looking at like, oh, I like that, I could vote for that, and then I was like, that's a terrible way to approach list making, right? If I'm just like trying to find a consensus result from other people's suggestions, it's not great. Yeah, so I did the video essay poll last year and this year, I guess, if you're counting this one. And there's usually 3 editors. I think there's been 4 in some years. I edited it with Kelly Meadows and Sydney Wild Harris, who is a much more like academic video essayist. But me and Kaylin are very much on the YouTube end, or rather like the more, I would say, like self-publishing end, even more like I don't really consider myself a YouTube video essayist in that sense because I've not got a big audience myself, or I don't publish on my own channel a lot anymore. Um, so it's yeah, there's been an attempt to balance like away from the academic side in the poll because it was previously very much like what do the academics think is the best videographic criticism in the field. I think they understood that that was not a great reflection of it. Um, yeah, so we have always kind of tried to make it feel kind of collegiate. Sam, you said something about like it's good to have a space for us to have these kind of public conversations about videographic criticism, about essay making. And for me, the academics have always had that because they have these like panels, and there's actually one starting pretty soon. Clark, you'll have to tell me if I'm right on that, but the Screen Media Studies Consortium or whatever is coming up soon, right? That's the big videographic one. What's it called? SCMS. I've never been, so I would not know. But yeah, so they have these big kind of conferences, and we don't really do that on YouTube. And there's often like you'll just know about someone else's work via Twitter or via like talking to them on Discord. And so I think the poll is like a good idea in the sense that it kind of makes open some of this stuff. It's fascinating to see when we were taking in that like a lot of the academics started using generative AI as a video making tool in a way that I think would get them like lambasted if they were on YouTube. They would be really, really like kind of ripped into in the video essay space. And so it was interesting to see like the different kind of approaches to that. It's not to say, by the way, that it was an unreflective use, just that it was used as a tool in that context. Um, yeah, also like just to keep that collegiate, we also don't rank the poll. We don't really pick a winner per se. Even the other Sight and Sound polls, like their best film of the year list, always pick a top film. I mean, technically, there is a winner in the sense that there is someone who got the most votes, which is a really good supercut essay by Barbara Zecchi, who's like a constant feature on this poll and is a really interesting essayist who works in the academic world. And it's kind of like women yelling, basically, is kind of like the supercut. It's great. It's called Rhythms of Rage. That's the winner only in the sense that it had 9 nominations. So it had the most nominations of any single video. But there's 183 videos in the list. So like 9 is not massive. Like if you compare it to the Oscars, for instance, there's way less consensus in this space. And some people, I think, didn't get to the top purely because they tied with themselves. Ositan Lakuri, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, shows up on this list recently quite a lot. And she's one of the essayists I'm thinking of when I think about like academic essayists bringing in stylistic elements. And she did a really weird video last year, which is kind of like a desktop documentary. Do you know what I mean by that? Where they're like showing like a usually like it's a PC desktop that they faked up. But her one is like her browsing her phone while she's watching, like illegally streaming an episode of Xena, and like the menstrual cycle app that she uses keeps popping up. And that's kind of like the focus of that's what jumps off the essay. So it's a really interesting, like very kind of Gen Z forward essay that uses that visual device to still kind of analyze this piece of media and think about it. Yeah, so I like that there's this kind of non-hierarchical approach to the poll.
Yeah, I would really love to hear more. Well, I think you and Dot are probably the most plugged into this space. I would love to hear more about this kind of split between like academic video essayists slash, Vimeo video essayists and then YouTube
Yeah,
video essayists. Because we talk a lot about video essay, but we don't necessarily consume the same. Like a lot of the people watching right now and the people in the chat probably have not heard of the creators that you are talking about, and they're probably not even aware of this other space, as I know I wasn't.
I wasn't until I really started getting into the Discord world, and it's through people like Max and also like Catherine Grant, who was active on our Discord for a bit, and is still active on some other places online. She's a British video essayist academic. And I'm a filmmaker, so I go to like experimental film festivals and I see some stuff there that kind of crosses between There's a woman called Mariam Tafakori who pops up a lot in this poll, who makes these, yeah, Max, absolutely, she's amazing. She makes a lot of like Farsi language supercuts that kind of superimpose elements of these basically unknown films to a Western audience to kind of create interesting juxtaposition. So that's almost an experimental film more than it is a kind of videographic practice. I think it's her who really defined it as videographic. But it's funny because like I don't have a degree in video essays. I don't have an MA or a doctorate. I'm one of the least letters after my names people in the Discord. Max, I think you might be better placed to talk about that academic side of it, even though you yourself are no longer in that, right? Or not currently.
Yeah, I'm not active in that space anymore, just because I'm not in higher ed anymore. I mean, I was a film professor for years, but I'm not anymore. The the last serious publishing I did in that was a year or two ago, but that's still where my heart and my aesthetic lies. I think I watch plenty of YouTube, obviously, but one of the reasons why I'm so happy the poll exists is because it can expose people who aren't on the Vimeo side of things to what's going on over there. It is, I mean, Vimeo is impenetrable by an algorithm because it doesn't have an algorithm. It doesn't give you recommended watch later stuff except by the same creator. So if you don't know about it, you're not going to find it. Of course, that's also true on YouTube. YouTube makes it look like they're sending you all the great stuff, but they're really just sending you either something very new that a lot of people accidentally clicked on, or something with a ton of views already. And so the algorithm is gatekeeping all the great stuff over on YouTube. Well, not all of it, but almost all the great stuff on YouTube also. So if anything, our struggle these days is against that algorithm. And one of the great ways to fight back against the algorithm is to watch the stuff on this poll because this is straight from people who saw it and are passionate about it. And then once you see some of the stuff on the poll, well, I guess follow those people and see where that takes you.
You kind of touched on something there as well, which is interesting. That like because YouTube is the mass media end of the medium, the academics know YouTube essayists, but not the other way around so much, which is quite interesting.
Yeah,
A
absolutely.
weird moment for me was when I think it was on the Video Essay podcast. I'm so sorry if I pronounce her name wrong. Evelyn Kreutzer? Yay, okay. She was talking about an essay I made about Everything Everywhere All at Once, BoJack Horseman, basically like media that thrives in the world of millennial existential dread. And she described my work as like having that YouTube style. And I was like, oh. Don't tell me that. I didn't even realize. Like, but of course it does, right? Like, I make on YouTube what I see others making on YouTube. And so that just sent me down like a brain spiral. Like, how is what we're all making together influenced in ways that we haven't even considered? It's something I'm still thinking about. I've never, yeah.
That's probably a compliment because the academic essays in part are marked out by like the lack of polish because that's not the function of those essays for them. It's like a research practice. So like it doesn't have to look good to be viewed or to do its job. Whereas for like people who make their money on YouTube like we do, you do kind of have to try with the techniques. Yeah.
Hold on just a sec. CJ the X never looked good.
Okay.
Like, you
Yeah.
know what I
Fair
mean?
play.
There's no lighting. It's just a single camera and screaming. And hey, I put a CJ the X video on one of my polls a couple of years back. Because I just loved the energy and I was steamrolled by the idea and it was really enjoyable. But I don't think that I mean your videos have a lot of polish, and there are plenty of other people who work in the YouTube space that understand After Effects, for instance, and are polished. So maybe they're not as algorithmically grabby, but they're not necessarily less polished over on Vimeo. They're just the level of polish is appropriate to what they're attempting to accomplish.
I think what I was thinking about when Sam said that is that like it's the way that nobody thinks they have an accent, right? Like we all speak with an accent, but like we don't hear our own. This is just how people talk. And it's not until you hear somebody else that you're like, oh yeah, that's where they're from. right? Like I can hear that we are using language differently. I think YouTube and Vimeo are kind of the same. Like there's a different set of conventions, and I think that that's also probably true across the various sub communities of essayists on YouTube, in a way that might be really fun to analyze someday when I have nothing to do with the year.
I completely agree with that. That would be fun to analyze. And some people, they'll go like people who are looking for their next fix on ASMR content will hop on YouTube just looking for or listening for an accent they've never heard before. To find the new accent is to find, the new tantalizing thing for their ears, perhaps in that case. But for me, if I'm seeking out video essay content, I am looking for a new way to see. Just show me a new way to see. I have a lot of pre-established ways of seeing. Like I understand if somebody is talking face cam straight to camera and they're going to sort of read out an essay to me, that one's familiar. I already know that way. If you're going to play two pieces of media side by side and sort of compare them, that sort of Wolflinian comparison, I'm familiar with that one too. It's not bad. It's a very good technique, but I'm familiar with it. And so these days, if I'm nominating anything to the poll, it's because it figured out a technique that I hadn't seen before, or it figured out a use of a technique that I hadn't seen an old technique used that way yet. And that's all I'm looking for. These days, I'll be 3 minutes into what is probably an amazing H bomber guy style essay, and I'll be like, this isn't going on the poll. This is just telling me something. It might be telling me a new fact about some pop culture fixture, but it's not doing it in a new way. It doesn't feel indispensable. It doesn't feel like something in the future that somebody in the future will need to see to understand new ways of thinking. Because for me, it's about how can we use this videographic form to create new ways of thinking, which is almost utopian, but this idea of a media prosthesis, that if we come up with new kinds of images, we can create new thoughts and new ways of thinking. I truly believe in that, and I'm constantly chasing that kind of visual rhetoric. So if you can come up with a new thing I hadn't thought of thinking that way, or I've never seen it presented that way before, I'm in. That's what I'm looking for.
You
I
say that.
I,
Oh, go ahead, Kai.
that's cool. I was just gonna say I really kind of vibe with that quite a bit because one of the essays that I put on my list, one of my nominations on the BFI list was this video by Waste of Space, which is something that it was one of those videos that I just found randomly won. At the time, I think he had like less than 1,000 subscribers. The video is 3 minutes long, and it's about the film Ant-Man. I have not seen Ant-Man, and having seen this video essay, I still will not see Ant-Man probably ever in my life. But the reason I nominated the video essay was because I feel like, in spite of me having absolutely zero investment in this topic, I still managed to walk away from this video having learned something that I never knew before, having seen information that like I felt genuinely valuable and like could genuinely um could genuinely affect the way that I view, because the whole video is basically analyzing why Ant-Man is shot in the very specific way that it is, and specifically its aspect ratio, which is 184:1, which is unique among the general MCU films. And the whole video, well, I say the whole video again, it's only 3 minutes, but it's basically just talking about how the film used this aspect ratio to emphasize certain aspects of, like, the main character shrinking, and like using that to like show relative size and all that kinds of stuff. And again, this is a film I have absolutely zero investment in, but the way it was presented, and like also again, it wasn't arguably you could say it wasn't even really about the film. It was about the art of using aspect ratios, and Ant-Man was just the avenue used to discuss that topic in general. Um, so yeah, that I was just listening to Max talk about his what he feels makes a good essay, and I was feeling that was the kinds of things that resonate with me. Like when I was thinking about this video, I said in my description of it, it's probably one of like arguably the best kind of video, at least in my opinion, that you can find on YouTube. It's just just this random thing that just it isn't too much of a sink, but is still informative enough that you feel like you've left having learned something, or like you've gained something at the very least. I feel like that's the mark of at the very least, a decent video, I'd say.
The subject of like video essays kind of teaching you, or yeah, how to think differently or see differently, um, feels so hard to achieve. I think hearing you say that almost,
I mean, I think maybe to clarify, it's not necessarily that I think like you have to leave like a video like having learned some kind of lesson or something, like or like have like your entire worldview changed by like every single video that like you that you meet. It's more it's I think it's often like as simple as like, oh, I hadn't considered that before. Like I didn't know about this kind of thing, but now I do. And now that's now something that I'm aware of, and I appreciate
right.
that.
Sorry, I was mostly referring to Dot's previous comment.
No, that's cool. I feel like I probably should have like elaborated on that point anyway. So
Um, I think part of the weird thing about celebrating um, video essays that do something really, really well, whether it is bring up a point that we hadn't considered in a way we hadn't considered it, or show us something new about media that we love, or even go so far as to elevate the form of video essay itself. As a creator of video essay, it is so strange that the more we start to recognize works that are really, really, really good, the more I'm like, oh no, is my stuff going to hold up anymore? Like, am I able to kind of rise to this new standard that we're all kind of creating through celebrating works that really do deserve to be celebrated? And I guess an example of this recently, I was watching Leadhead's video. I remember her thumbnail is I want to change video essays in 2025. I think I'm remembering that correctly. The video, or no, sorry, is that the title? And then the thumbnail is I'm supposed to be an artist. Yeah. Um, Watching another creator who I respect talk about wanting to do something more, wanting to have more thoughtfulness in framing, presentation, lighting, symbolism through shot composition, backing up the script with creative transitions, and by being thoughtful with where a video is shot. I was like, oh God, don't do that. Don't elevate your own work, because this it's hard enough to do this as it is. And it's funny having to kind of tamp down on that and be like, no, 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 no. Like, that's the YouTube talking. That's the part of me that goes, if you're not making one video a month, you're failing. Um, but most of these videos that we really respect, they're very hard to create, and it's kind of awkward that we're like trapped in this box, YouTube, that fills our brain with these priorities that kind of run counter to creating the work that we want to create in the way that we think would best suit the work and the audience.
Yeah, something that I was thinking about too, about like the difference I think between the sort of like YouTube and Vimeo or like academic style of essay is that I think with the academic space, you don't necessarily have this requirement of like holding people's attention, which I think is a positive and negative. I think it kind of has that effect of like sometimes the academic stuff can be a little bit more indulgent or like not necessarily like unpolished, but like not as tight maybe. But on the
I'm
other
in so
hand,
much
like
trouble for saying unpolished, by the way. I'm cooked. Sorry.
we
And
won't tell
I
anyone.
wanted to jump in and protest and say, let's just compare the running times. Academic video essays are almost always 12, 16 minutes or less. And the YouTube stuff is the stuff that runs 8 hours.
That is true. I mean, I'm not, yeah, I think YouTube videos are definitely like bloated, but I also think the academic essays are a lot more comfortable with being, and I don't mean this in like a bad way, but being kind of like boring. Or at least deferring a lot of the interesting part onto you as the viewer. Like you need to put it together why these images are interesting or important and like what it means to you. Whereas on YouTube, you more have to like tell somebody that information, which is fine.
But
But it's like a different
what's
type
the
of
effect?
thinking.
Right, exactly. But what's the effect of that pact? Like when you sit down to watch a thriller movie or read, a page turner mystery novel, the pact of that media with you is implicitly, I am going
Hmm.
to make you interested every half page. And if you stop being interested, you might as well throw the book away because it's the only reason I exist is to keep you interested. When you sit down to, read a poem, that pact isn't there. The pact is you need to pour yourself into it, and it will plant itself in you, and something will grow if you water it with your own soul. And like that's the case of the academic video essays. You kind of have to give yourself to this, but if you do, if you give of your attention, it will plant itself and it will give back. It's just a different kind of pact
There is a
that
Yeah.
structural
that's being
difference as
implicitly made
well.
with the media.
Max, you said like it feels like they're giving more to you to work out or to like think about, right, in the academic essay. But one of the weird things about like comparing it to YouTube is that the videos are very different, but the publication is also very different. And in at most academic senses, they get to have at least an abstract, and more often than not, quite a long article and a separate list of kind of like explanatory stuff that is separate to the film in itself. And so, like for me, who wants an essay really to be a complete kind of artifact in and of itself, I always feel like that's like a byproduct of the fact that it comes from academia that requires like a kind of publication in order to get the credits or whatever.
Yeah, that's one of my big pet peeves from the academic space. Is that I hate reading the abstract. The video should stand alone by itself, and if it doesn't, I don't care. I move on. Don't tell my other academic friends that, but it's
Even
true.
if it takes 8 hours, you can get it all in the video. I've got a dip on that note, but lovely to chat and good luck with the rest of your call.
Thanks for
Thank
stopping
you.
by.
See it.
I
Oh,
was going to say the
Brandon's
other
bad
thing.
now. Sorry, go ahead.
The other thing I think that is different about the academic space is that often there's an editorial board involved, right? Like there are like for on the YouTube side, what determines what succeeds is the algorithm and engagement, which doesn't necessarily have anything to do with quality, which is not a criticism of YouTube videos. It's just that like it is not in the same way that like Google gives results based on relevance. That it is not a statement on the quality of the content. The YouTube algorithm is the same way. It's it is looking at engagement. Whereas with academic video essays, if it's being published in a journal, then there's somebody who is looking at the content, reviewing it, giving feedback, trying to sort of shape it, deciding what gets published and what doesn't. And I think that that's another sort of interesting difference of sort of curation versus algorithmic filtering.
I also want to say that, like, when we are, you mentioned that pact, what does a piece of art promise implicitly to whoever's interacting with it? I think we kind of are at a point in YouTube where, or I don't know if we've ever not been at this point, where entertainment is kind of the main promise. I think some of us have come to expect to be educated. I don't know that we come in expecting to be challenged. Like that is kind of a, if that happens, we didn't expect it, We don't go in, I don't click into a YouTube video thinking, and this is going to sound harsh, this creator is capable of challenging me. And that's not to say they're not. I think that unfortunately maybe I typed in chat like there's a trust issue and then didn't elaborate on that. I don't necessarily have high trust when I am discovering through YouTube. If I see a creator that I've never engaged with before, I've never watched any of their stuff, YouTube has maybe kind of conditioned me to maybe not even at this point think that that creator is a human. So the in order to kind of make that pact between video and viewer, there at the very least seems to need to be that existing relationship between the creator and the viewer.
I feel like
I the
you either need that or you need the hook of a lifetime. It's like I either have to know you or I need to see a thumbnail and thing that just I'm like, I have to know. But it's so hard to meet new people in
But
real
how many
life, but
times?
also on YouTube.
Yeah. But how many times has the hook of a lifetime not paid off? That almost seems to be what the algorithm favors over anything else. Like, do Liberty City's power lines connect to anything? Were we all served this video? Because I know I was. Do Liberty City's power lines connect to anything? It was an amazing premise of like, what is the infrastructure in this game? And if we examine the pedestrian aspects of the infrastructure that's visible in the game, does it lead us anywhere? That's a really, really cool idea. And that video goes nowhere. I was so upset. We spend 23 minutes tracing down whether the power lines go anywhere, and then it's like, well, here's the answer. These power lines connect to these other power lines. See you next time. And it's like, that's not an answer. That's not nothing that you should have connected that discourse to. Did you actually connect it to? At no point was any greater understanding of anything revealed. How dare you?
See, it's funny because
and
oh, sorry. No, keep going.
no, how dare you was the end of it. So you go right ahead, Kendra.
Well, I'm a big Any Austin fan, and I think what the challenge with that is this is kind of the bridge I find myself on too, which is like I'm not sure I'm a video essayist. And I think that he is not a video essayist in a lot of ways, but he is in many other ways. Like he's producing 2 to 3 videos a month. And like he has done I think the reason that happened was because he did that video of like tracing the route of where all the rivers go in that game that I love watching videos on, but I don't know. Medieval. It is themed medieval.
We're not going to help you.
Medieval theme, anyone? Medieval?
Is it Skyrim?
the one
Yes,
the
it's
game
Skyrim.
about
Okay.
medieval.
It was Skyrim.
Oh,
Maxo
no,
knows.
I'm the only person in this chat that knows Skyrim.
That knows
Confirmed.
medieval.
Yeah, that knows medieval.
Yeah, anyway, I just think that he is on that path where you say, what is that type of content? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not sure that's a video essay anymore. And I feel the same. I feel like I'm on that same path myself. So it's interesting.
Rasputin just brought it up in the chat, Dot. But I think you might, if you want to give Any Austin one more shot, the video to watch is his video on the rivers in Morrowind, because it does, I think, and the channel has ended up doing a lot of these sort of infrastructure analysis videos of late, and I think it might be in part because of the one about Morrowind, because instead of sort of stopping at, hey, this is a video game that doesn't need to follow real world rules, it attempts to take the text at its word and does this exploration of like real world hydrology. Like, is there an explanation based on what we know about how water works that might explain why this video game looks the way that it does? And I think it ends up doing a lot more than the power lines in GTA 4 video does.
I guess all
Also-
I'm saying is when he arrived at the power lines not going anywhere, he shouldn't have published the video. But the Morrowind one sounds really interesting. Like our time is finite on this planet. We can't just be throwing 24-minute sections of time away on things that don't lead anywhere. We can't afford to. We're humans with an expiration date. And I want to learn with the expiration date time that I have left. And the algorithm, of course, doesn't care about that because, as always, the imperatives of capitalism do not overlap at all with the imperatives of a life well lived.
Do the
It's funny.
fireworks.
Do the fireworks?
Not work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a conversation many years ago when I was more of a fiction writer than a video essayist with someone who publishes a lot of books. And this person's books, it's so hard to be tactful.
You
They
didn't like
had
them.
typos in them, which I found a little bit unnecessary. I kind of remember talking at one point and saying to them, like, hey, uh, how do you get so many books done? And she went, well, I just always know that my next book, is going to be better than the previous book, and I'm never going to make my perfect work. So I just need to keep going. I just need to keep making. And some people engage with my books. I keep saying engage with. What kind of PR am I doing? Some people read my books and they like them a lot, and they don't care that there's a typo. It's who cares? This one word is, these two letters are switched. Who cares? Some people read my books and they really like them, and eventually I'm going to write a book and I'm going to release it, and it's going to be the best thing I've ever done. And I maybe wouldn't have released that if I was like fiddling with every little thing the whole time and holding myself back from releasing my work just because this one thing wasn't done. And I remember being like, wow, that's just not how I do things. Like, if everybody, in this call knows that I will get, to a point where I think a video is done. And then I'll go, actually, it needs more time in the oven. I will just shelve it. I will take a fully recorded, completed video and I will just put it away. And then no one gets to see it. And so I am always kind of asking myself that question, like, what is our responsibility when we're creating work to not like waste people's time versus what is our responsibility as people creating art to share the stuff that we've made, even if it's not perfect, because we can trust our audience that they don't need everything to be like completely spit shined. I don't know the answer.
There's a lot of different reasons to make art. So, like, again, if the content that I'm looking for on YouTube is ASMR, I don't care if they're mispronouncing words. I care if they have a nice sounding voice. Like, you don't have to do a lot of polish on something like that. But if I'm on YouTube for ideas, like, I want the ideas to stand up, and I want people to take the time to make sure that the ideas do stand up. And also, while we're at it, like, you can make art for just yourself. You can make art for a small community, and you can also try to make art for the world. And if you're trying to make art for the world, I feel like you have a higher level of responsibility, that not only the time you're putting into making it, but also the time that people are putting into watching it is time better spent than the time they could have spent planting a tree, maybe, or the time they could have spent hiking and rock climbing and looking at a sunset, or whatever it is. That at every point there's a trade-off. If we're going to talk about world history, we're not going to talk. What was your Josh? What was the Broadcast Act of '96? What was it?
The Telecommunications Act of 1996, making its second appearance on this stream.
Making its second appearance, because I like to reference a very specific thing from even earlier, the Cross of Iron speech by Dwight Eisenhower, who he basically said, every time we decide to build a bomber for the military, that is a theft of the public good to the tune of, and he translated the amount of money it took to build a bomber into, we could have built this many schools, we could have built this many hospitals, we could have built these other things, we could have built this many miles of highway. And it's like, yeah, you do need to think about it that way. Art is not necessarily, and content definitely not necessarily, an absolute good. Sometimes it's actually a depletion of time and energy you could have spent elsewhere. So all I'm saying, Sam, is I think you're doing the right thing. I love that you care about whether it is worth somebody's time to watch it and whether or not it will help the world that it exists. Now, again, if you were only making it for one person, you were just putting together a little postcard for somebody else to see, then that's a different equation. But if you're hoping that 100,000 or a million or more people will see it, then you are spending the appropriate amount of time, because that's a lot of time that Earth is spending on that thing, and it should definitely edify them if they're going to be spending that much time.
That is
I
such a funny thing to think about. Sorry, go ahead, Kendra.
I feel like I'm not telling someone they can't go for a hike. They would do like I didn't chain them to the chair and say don't go for a hike. You have to watch this thing about columns. But but it is interesting because I do think there has to be a middle ground. Because like I never want to waste people's time. But not to be like there's a complication when it comes to money also involved in this platform. The creators that we're talking about are making money off of their video essays, which then puts you in this complicated place where you do like if I don't release my video every month, that is a paycheck that will not be there that month. And I think like it is complicated to think about it. But also if I do a dud, if I mess something up in my video, that's also a reduce in what I will make. But I think that's the complicated part is it's not always the case. So many people are making video essays for the love of video essays or for professional things or for all of this stuff, but there's a huge portion of YouTube that we it's part of the equation for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think the Any Austin video about power lines is a really good example of that. And I like that video. I'm not trying to pick a fight with Any Austin. Um, but I think that is the case where something that they did really got a lot of attention. And then there's now an expectation that they're going to do similar things in that vein. And so the algorithm sort of creates a demand for them to make a particular kind of video, whether or not they still have something new that they want to do in that direction and in that vein.
And also, like, I do think that it might be the algorithm's issue. Like, I never want to release a video with a typo. Luckily, it doesn't happen when I use my voice. But I do think that there's something like you want to have quality and you need to have quality, but it does really help to just keep like I kind of agree with your I wouldn't necessarily do that for books, but I do agree that like I thought my first video was the best video I'd ever make. I'm way better at it now. You know what I mean? And like and there's parts that I haven't improved at all on because I turns out I don't really care about editing and so I just haven't put it's just not something that I'm passionate about. But I do think that there's something to be said for speed and just like you think about it with columnists even in papers. Like they have to write a column every 2 weeks. Like I love Jamel Bowie from the New York Times. He's a fantastic columnist. I'm not expecting every essay to be a home run. I will say he's got very good numbers. Like they're all extremely good. But one of the reasons he's so good is because he's so consistent, because there's such a volume that he's producing. I am reading 1 out of every 4 of his columns. And I'm like, this is remarkable. I'm probably missing 3 of them because they weren't enough to grab me, or they weren't necessarily gonna me saying I wouldn't read Jamel Bowie's work, it feels psychotic. But anyway, I just think that there's like this is not there's precedent for creating things consistently and it making you better.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with this topic because there are kind of like two things that I have to hold simultaneously. Um, I chose not to release a video essay on YouTube until I felt like I was completely ready. Like, and I remember getting a bunch of comments that were like, wow, I can't believe this is your first video essay. And I basically told all of them, it's not. This is not my first video essay. I've been making these by myself for years. just trying to learn how to record audio and write scripts and just doing practice work on my own because nothing felt ready. And I, at the time, felt really good about, holding myself to some kind of standard, which, like, I don't know, I would be kind of critical, I guess, of that version of myself, because um, the subjectivity obviously factors into it. Like, who am I to say, like, oh, this work doesn't deserve to be seen? Like, who am I to say that about any work? But also, Dan Olson released a video many years ago. I don't remember what it was called. Um, it he talks about motivation, and he said something at like minute 8 of this like 14-minute long video that was like, we get so much practice starting things, so much practice writing the first paragraph, editing the first minute, and then how much practice do we get finishing things? How much practice do we get polishing our audio and making our end credits and exporting in the right format and dealing with commenters? Those are things you can't practice until you release something publicly. There are certain aspects of being a public creator that you can practice forever on your own and you'll never get good at it. So I guess there is something to be said for just doing it, even if it's not perfect, because that really is like how you get there.
Oh, I'll never forget Zay Frank's advice on this. He was a face cam video blogger back in like 2004, 2005, who had a show called The Show, pre YouTube. The Show with Zay Frank. Circle on back and watch it. The archives are amazing. Some of the best produced internet content of that time. And nobody remembers it at all now because it's 20 years ago. But The Show with Zay Frank, he introduced this notion of brain crack, where he said if you have a dream that you want to do something like write a screenplay or make a movie or whatever, and all you're doing is just imagining it and leaving it in your head, of course, everybody's handing you awards and they're applauding and you're doing it perfectly. But that's a form of brain crack. You actually have to make it. And until you do, you won't know anything about how to actually make it. The person who made it and made it badly made it so much better than the person who didn't make it at all. And more than that, they didn't get addicted to the brain crack of it being perfect as long as it just stayed in their head. Of course, he's not necessarily talking about whether or not you release it and how much revision you do before you release it. If the question is, do I get started or not get started, I'll always tell people, just get started. And definitely try out some new techniques while you're doing it and see if fiddling around with all the tools inside of DaVinci or Adobe or whatever tool you're using. I mean, you could do it in PowerPoint. Just fiddle around with whatever tools you're using, and you're going to discover new forms of visual rhetoric that you didn't think of before and new juxtapositions. Fiddle around with the tools, break the tools, things will come out of that. And the stuff that comes out might not look better to you than the brain crack, but it will be better than the brain crack because it will actually exist.
Well, and I think also that's how we get better. Sam and I were talking at the beginning about the sort of the times where our feedback has been perhaps disappointing to the other, right? And I think part of it, at least on my side, is that like I get to the point where I am experiencing the thing that I have made as representative of like exactly what I want it to be. And it's exactly what it's supposed to be in my mind. Right. And so I expect then when I'm going to share it with somebody else that they're going to be like, yes, it's perfect. You have done perfect. Good job, Josh. And then like when I encounter an actual audience member, especially somebody who is as thoughtful as Sam, who understands a lot about both what I'm trying to make and the way that it's going to be received by an audience, then all of a sudden it's like, well, maybe it's not as perfect as it is in the imagined world of my own mind. And like sometimes that is a really hard thing to confront. But like what we get to at the end, it's always better, right? Than if I had just let myself stop at the version I thought was perfect, 10 drafts ago.
It's
Um,
been don't do it. Yeah. It's been interesting listening to this conversation because I feel like as specifically when it comes to my YouTube videos, um I've been trying to think of a more flattering way to describe this, but I think I think the term I'm looking for really is just egocentric when it comes to how I do my things, in the sense that like I I view my videos as almost as like exorcisms of like my thoughts, basically. Because of that, I don't really care about them being perfect. Like like take like for example my, my Signalis video, I guess. Well, I'll take that. Like that, I didn't make that video with the intention of like making like, I don't know, like a perfect thing, to like a perfect like analysis of the game Signalis. I made it as a way to deal and to show my feelings about the game, and those feelings and those experiences that I have, the resulting, those aren't perfect, so the resulting video isn't going to be perfect. You know, I don't think I will ever make a perfect video, because I, you know, I will never be a perfect person. I will never see anything that is perfect. I will never feel anything that is perfect. And ultimately, you know, like you know, that's all my videos are really. They're just feelings. That doesn't mean that, you know, that I don't that, you know, I don't want them to, like, you know, that I don't want the videos to be compelling in their own right. Like, you know, I'll think back to well, I don't want other people, you know, to enjoy them. Like, for example, I always think of how my my fuck plot video, you know, like Max knows about this. I gave the I was struggling with, like, you know, working through it and like trying to like really represent what I wanted to say. I gave the script to Max to see what he thought about it, and the points that he ended up making, and what helped me to realize what I was missing from the script. You know, I, even though I very much appreciate what he did, very much what he did, and I genuinely think the video ended up coming out significantly better than it would have. I still don't view that video as any closer to being perfect. If you get it, it's just the expressions that I wanted to make came out more purer, closer to what perhaps I had been hoping to convey. But yeah, ultimately, it still comes down to just that kind of release. That's all they are for me. Just moments of release, of catharsis. And, you know, hopefully, you know, some people will see that and they'll think, yeah, this is cool. I like this. And sometimes they'll see that and go like, nah, this ain't for me. And I hope they'll just click off on that and they go find something else that, you know, they like.
It's a tough
Yeah.
balance.
You're
Go ahead, Dot.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Your work exists, Kai, in a space of uncertainty. And that goes back to like Montaigne's early definitions of what an essay is, that it's a thing that where you're trying to figure something out. And that's why Josh nominated your Eminem video, because it deals with that uncertainty so exquisitely. And so like when we were going back and forth on fuck plot, I I told you straight off, I bet all of the suggestions I'm giving you are terrible. But even though you didn't use a single one of them, which I was perfectly happy that that's how it turned out, it did inspire you to do some other third thing that neither of us had thought of at the beginning, and that was perfect. That's exactly what had to happen. When you're dealing with that space of uncertainty, you're really just reaching out to an audience saying, are you also uncertain about this thing? Let's be uncertain together and see if we can figure something out and see if we can make any headway on it. And it's really important to do work where it's like there's some large shared cultural uncertainty that we maybe haven't shined a flashlight on yet that we need to spend some time with. And then on the other polar end of things, there's the explainer video, which obviously we know plenty of examples of explainer videos, but I think Sam's Breath of the Wild stamina wheel is a great example of that, where you had figured out exactly what you loved about this thing, and you were going to pop, 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 pop. Here's all the reasons. Let me tell you exactly. Those are two poles, not because one's better or one's worse, but because sometimes nobody knows the answer, but we need to be in a space where we get to think about it. And sometimes one person does know the answer and the rest of us get to be enlightened, and that's great too. Those are both super valid forms.
The I've been thinking a lot about like the collaborative nature of um, video essays specifically. After a friend texted me to say, I've been wondering why, after I watch a TV show, I immediately go and watch seven other people talk about the TV show I just watched. Like, do I not trust my own brain enough to have opinions about the TV show by myself? And he's a very thoughtful person. I love that he includes me in his brain journeys. But what he ended up coming to was it wasn't even necessarily that other people online could show him new things to appreciate about the show that he appreciated, which they can and they do, and that's part of it for him. But it's also that this day and age, we are given so much stuff, like new stuff, new, more. It's hard to take the time to reflect on something that mattered to us. If it was a piece of art or just a thought that we had. And he kind of had this nice realization that that's part of what videos and Reddit threads, etc., help him do. If he really loved something, he will go and he'll consume content on it as a reflective exercise to live in that piece of art for a little bit longer, and really digest it. And I think that that is very cool.
Yeah, when I was in college as an English major, like I took a lot of literature classes, and very often I would read something for a literature class, and I'd think like, okay, like I if you had asked me like right after I'd read it, what do I think of it? I wouldn't have had an answer, like I had consumed it and my brain was sort of working on it. But the places that my real opinion really developed was we get into class and we'd have discussions and it's like, well, I don't know what I think about this book, but I know you're wrong, right? And like in conversation, sort of being presented with ideas that maybe didn't align with what I thought. Like I defined my own ideas against what other people were saying. And like for me, I think that's one of the things that video essay can do is it gives us like other voices to sort of develop our own ideas against, even if we don't necessarily agree with them. Or even if we do agree with them, then we're yes anding. But like by looking at that conversation, we get to sort of build our own ideas and views.
Yeah, and it's also like, as Dot said, we make things too, like, even just outside of like what we watch and why, what we make and why, we shouldn't consider ourselves such low priority people in our own lives and spaces that it's not worth it to just create for ourselves and to invest in ourselves and to use video essay creation as a way to expand our skill set and knowledge and entertain ourselves. And like, we exist in public so thoroughly nowadays with the internet being so ever present that it's easy to forget that if you make something and it's just for you and you learned a new thing and you had fun and you showed it to one person, like, you succeeded. Good job. It doesn't have to, get seen by your YouTube channel.
I actually think that's one of the best things that art can do is we know the artworks of the past that were the mega budget artworks. We know, for instance, giant frescoes that the Catholic Church commissioned from Raphael, and gave him this incredible amount of money to get the really expensive ultramarine blue pigment and all that. We know the cathedrals that people spent 100 years building, but there were plenty of people who were like, I don't know, making little needlework artworks or making little paintings, even maybe in their houses, or little sketches, and were maybe never seen by anybody except a small circle. That art is no less valid. It's just that the sieve of history has deleted it, which is not great necessarily. But the moment you remember that, you realize that it's fine to make stuff just for yourself or for a very small circle of people. And that's kind of a beautiful thing. Like, to have an artwork made for you absolutely rules. Like it's a great feeling, and damn the algorithm for telling us that it has to be otherwise. That its worth is only in proportion to the number of eyes that saw it.
Totally, totally, totally. I remember having this kind of breakdown moment a couple years ago, and I was just like walking around town and I thought about a building. And in this building, there is a painting, and somebody painted this, and it took them 4 months, and it's amazing, and it's beautiful, and it takes up an entire wall. And everybody who walks into this building goes, wow, look at this painting. This is incredible. And then one day the building burns down and nobody can look at that painting anymore. And then over time, people forget that that painting ever existed. Was it not worthwhile that the painting was painted? I think it was, but I can get so caught up in this idea of preservation and legacy and the concept of forever that um, sometimes if I'm working on something and I think, oh, will only 12 people see this? I'll go, what's the point?
Right. But it's weird because like 12 people is actually kind of a lot. Like we have such an insane, I think, like sense of like what's good, like what's a good performance for something. But like yeah, I think like, 50 years ago probably if you made a movie and 12 people watched it, you would be like that rocks. I can't believe I did that. Like you had a little room full of people and they watched your movie and you would be
That's my
like
whole town.
this is so cool. Yeah. And now it's like, or even like getting like 1,000 views on a video. And I think you look at that and you're like, fuck, like that's nobody. That's like an auditorium. That's like 3 auditoriums full of people. You know what I mean? So yeah.
I've thought a few times before, like how like I wish that like we could all like almost like go back to the days when like something getting just 10 views or like even like 100 views was like enough to like kind of just blow your mind. Like I remember when like my second video got 200. I was like, whoa, what the fuck? Why are so many people watching this shit? Like, what did I do? What happened? And like, yeah, I really think that, yeah, that like having it really would do a lot of us good to like try and get more back in touch with that kind of perspective, like kind of like what Maxa was saying, how like our perspective does tend to get like blown out when we see when a lot of the more visible YouTubers and like properties that we see perhaps naturally are the ones that have the most eyes on them. So perhaps in our heads we come to think of like the average YouTube video having like 100 million views, or the average film making $1 billion. It's like that's it's not really how that a billion being a bigger number than 1,000 doesn't diminish the fact that 1,000 is still a fucking big number.
Mhm.
Like 1,000 is literally everybody at my high school. Like when I think
Mhm.
about it like that, like imagining every single person at my high school like watching one of my videos, like that would be insane. And just because all of those people happen to be spread out across the entire globe does nothing to diminish how insane that is. And on that note, I think I will have to dip out, unfortunately, because I have some stuff to do. But yeah, keep that in mind, and yeah, hope you all enjoy the rest of the talk. Hope you have another one soon. I enjoyed this.
Yeah,
Bye bye.
thanks for coming.
Bye.
Okay.
Um,
Talking about um, this idea of sort of making things for a smaller audience and valuing smaller audiences, it made me think of Dot's video postcard series, which I think is a really cool idea. They're video essays that are sort of intended for an audience, a very specific audience, sort of one. If I don't know that I've watched them all, and it's been a while, but like they are video texts that obviously are intended to be viewed by a larger audience, but that like the idea that like I am making this for an individual as a part of a conversation, that I think can shape what the essay is and does in a way that like trying to address the broadest possible audience, I think sometimes that limits us, right? Like because Sam, I know, is interested. We've had a lot of conversations about like what assumptions can we make about what our audience knows, like what do I have to explain to them. And I think imagining like, okay, here's the person that I'm addressing, or here's the group that I'm addressing, can allow us to do different kinds of things in our essays in a really cool way.
Oh
It'll
man.
also ensure success. It
Yeah.
ensures success in this beautiful. No, I really mean that. When you make within a community, and making a video for one person is the same thing as writing a letter or writing a postcard. Like that's a connection between you and one other person. That's a, I guess, the minimum size of a community, but it still counts. Making a video within a community is guaranteed to be an enriching activity because the process of making it within that community was a community building act. You became a better person because you did something within a community. The fact that a video came out of it is almost secondary. But the point is, if you make within a community, you enrich that community, and to make a video postcard is to ensure success. And if somebody else watches it and they get something out of it too, well, that's even more success. The worst thing is when you make a video for an imagined audience and that audience isn't there. If you had started from that community perspective, it would have been certain to succeed from the beginning.
That is something we
Yeah.
have been talking about a lot. Um, I've been working on a video about solar punk, and I've been watching a lot of videos about solar punk as a part of my like research process. And something that interested me was that every video on solar punk would define solar punk. And so I would go, huh. So all of these seem to be presuming that a substantial portion of the audience needs the kind of operative term defined. So is it possible for me to make a video on solar punk for people who already know what it is? Would that make anyone mad? And, I kind of ended up realizing, like, yeah, we do create, again, the platform we create on shapes what we create. I know that anyone can stumble into my videos from anywhere. I don't know who they are. I don't know what they know. So it is easiest for me to work in a default mode of this person doesn't understand what I'm talking about. They have done no pre-work. They have no history with this topic. And unfortunately, increasingly where my brain goes is also they're uncharitable toward me. So not only do I need to define everything that I am talking about, I'm also going to assume that they're watching this video like this. And I'm trying to get better about not doing that. And instead, think of my viewer, the person I'm writing for and speaking to, as someone who is maybe capable of looking up a term if they don't know it. And someone who likes me and wants to hear what I have to say. And yeah, I'm going to hear from the vocal minority of people who will go, well, you didn't understand that this was because that's not my viewer. They're there by accident. They're welcome to share their opinion, but that's no longer who I'm going to be creating for.
It's interesting to think about like the viewer as someone who's kind of mean. I uh, I also think that I don't know, the more that you can think that your viewer is a nice person, even if they've just never met you, is like, I don't know. It is nice, but also I think I remember being really critical of things and assuming people were more critical of me. And I've kind of like let go of being, I mean, I'm critical about the things I read about, the things I write, things like that, but my uh views of other people's work is far less critical than I think it used to be. And it's now because I just create way more. And then I'm like, oh, no, we are all just doing our best. Like, unless someone's inherently doing harm, shout out to them. They made something. I don't know.
Yeah, it is the case, I think, that a lot of YouTube commenters are going to be hostile and sort of in different ways, some of which are predictable and some of which aren't. But I remember when I made my, oh goodness, what is still my most recent video about God of War Ragnarok. Um, Sam and I were talking in early drafts about this device that I used in that video, where I was quoting from a piece that I had published about God of War 3, like in 2011 or 2012, that like when that was still a new text, like talking about the way God of War 3 worked. And I remember Sam saying, like, that's really helpful because, like, you're putting yourself in conversation with yourself. And so, you are responding to some of the criticism that was made of that game back then. And, like, still getting comments once it came out that, like, oh, well, like, obviously he didn't play the earlier games. Like, he doesn't know anything about God of War 3. And I was like, I had a whole essay that I published at the time. I think that there's just like when we do that sort of defensive creation, when we try to anticipate the criticism we'll receive, I think it is beyond our ability to anticipate what people will choose to find fault with.
Yeah, and it
And it'll
shows
just be
up.
anything.
It will just
They'll
be
find
anything.
something, So there's no point in trying to like, fence yourself off from all of it because they'll just think of something. They're
I
creative.
want
They're
to.
creative too.
It won't even be on topic. It'll be like, oh
No.
my god, my
I
bed looks
can't believe
like it belongs in a prison. Like oh,
Right.
okay.
How could you not have
It's
anticipated
like
that
when
criticism of your points?
it's like when Deleuze said that a theory is like a box of tools. And if the or like a pair of glasses used to view something, that if it's not useful, discard them and find another pair. I think that I hope that when I enter a video essay, when I go into watching it, I'm looking for some sort of a tool or some sort of a pair of glasses. And if they don't suit me, then I move on. If the tool isn't useful to the work I'm trying to do, I move on. But I also understand that when you're trying to do very specialized work, you need very specialized tools to do it. And so Sam is really laughing at the fact that I'm saying tool a lot, and that works for me.
No, it's the prison bed. I can't stop laughing about the prison bed thing.
It is funny. It is funny because it's what I think whenever I see a floor level bed. So
It's Dot. Dot is leaving those comments.
I'm leaving the comments. No, I'm
You
not
guys,
leaving
it's
the
not on
comments.
the floor. It's not on the floor.
Oh, is it not?
Kendra's
no,
just
it's a
really
raised bed.
tall.
Kendra's standing.
Hello. No, it's a perspective. It's a perspective issue.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. No, what I mean is like, yeah, if you're trying to make every tool foolproof, you still will not avoid the frivolous lawsuits of the people who have managed to hurt themselves by misusing this very, very easy to use tool. If you're trying to make a tool that is for specialists, then yeah, they're going to have to read the damn manual first to figure out how to use it. And it's the same thing with essays. Sometimes you're creating to try to be as broad of an appeal and as useful to as broad a spectrum of people as possible, but they're still going to mess it up. And sometimes you create for a very small subset of people, and if those people know who they are, hopefully they'll receive it in the right. You never know, though.
I'm sorry, the prison bed thing is distracting me so much. I agree with you, Dot. I agree with everything you've ever said. I also really want Kendra's next video to be about be like ranking prison escape tunnels from movies, and then one day her upload is just an image of her empty room
I've
with
made
the
my
hole
way
dug
out.
through the wall.
You did it.
I was wanting a video where the bed changes heights every minute or so. Like you cut away and then you cut back, and it's like 6 inches higher off the ground.
Well, I was gonna say the perspective I think is funky, but also everyone says prison. I would say sanitarium. That's kind of what I was going for. I was going for, oh no, my tuberculosis out of
None of us are
control.
getting it. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No,
Yeah,
no
we
one
just spend
gets.
some time by the sea, make a video out in nature.
I also want to like say about, you know, the like the negative viewer topic that I don't even consider this to be the usual, oh, some people on YouTube leave mean comments. Because some people on YouTube do leave mean comments. I agree with Willow in the chat that like most of my comments are very nice, very wonderful. What I'm even, you know, talking about with all this is like Dot was saying, creating like the foolproof tool, like making sure that you like sand off all the corners on your script so that nobody can possibly um, find something to get at you over. That is the way I was writing my scripts for the past year probably, and it felt less fun. It felt less fun. It was even abstracted away from comments that I get, because again, most of my comments are nice. No, instead, I would be living in this process of creating video essays with the worst person on YouTube sitting right next to me. Does that person even exist in my comment section? Like, no, but I'm so conditioned to expect that they're there or that I might see them if I don't do my due diligence. And so I'm just sitting at my desk trying to write my next script. And all the while, the person I'm writing it for and the person I'm in conversation with is my imagined worst possible viewer. And you just can't have fun when you're creating under those circumstances.
And that when we've been wanting to talk for ages about how we made the Tears of the Kingdom videos. And like that was one of the more interesting parts of the process for me because like I am a pretty small channel, and I am also a dude, and like it is absolutely the case that critical comments on YouTube are heavily gendered. And so it was a really strange experience for me to like be writing a collaborative project with someone where we had to be thinking about like, okay, if we phrase the line in this way, like how is it going to be received by the gamers, you know, if that line is coming out of a woman's mouth instead of coming out of a gender broadly masculine Adam.
I think that video though is such a funny example because you said like I think for all of us, like we mostly get nice comments, which is amazing. But that video did get some really wild comments, like criticizing things that yeah, I think it just was really frustrating. It almost felt like a validation of that fear. Um yeah, just the people like I'm trying to like the people being like, "Oh, well like actually like this much time has passed between Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom." Um,
The
but you
four
obviously
hours
you as
joke.
the player don't
The
know
four
that
hours
when
joke.
you're starting
Uh,
the game.
yeah, I
Yeah.
yeah, I do think that that probably you know, that might even be why I spent most of the spring summer, you know, creating. I like the term creating defensively. Yeah, that was probably why I got into that headspace because when Josh and I were working on our Tears of the Kingdom videos, and in case you have not watched them and don't know what we're talking about, Josh and I created two videos that kind of loop into each other. And in one of them, we discuss a mechanic in Tears of the Kingdom that I'm not a huge fan of, and Josh is more of a fan of. And in the other, I kind of complain about the narrative in Tears of the Kingdom, how it handles being a sequel, and Josh kind of, yeah, provides like we counterbalance one another. Um, I don't know if we even have enough time to get into all the stuff I want to say about what it took to make two videos that were like equal parts, like the brainchild of two different people. I don't know of a lot of essays that have done that, and so it was very fun to work on something that felt really new. Um, but I do think that because it was about a very popular game and because I was being like very negative, I was really sensitive about how are people going to take what I'm saying. Um, Especially unfortunately, yes, like given that I am a woman and frequently if I say anything about video games that a certain type of commenter disagrees with, they will assume it's because I am very dumb. I also want to say I have to leave in like 15 minutes, but we will be back a couple hours later to talk to a different cohort of people. This is
And
like most of my
one
day.
more
I love
thing
it.
to call back to an earlier part of this conversation, it's also interesting to note that um, this idea that like sort of the algorithm sort of creates these expectations on us on the part of the kind of content that we're going to make. One of the things that prompted those videos is the fact that Sam had the stamina wheel video sort of take off about Breath of the Wild, and then the durability video, that there was a part of Sam's audience that was waiting to hear from her, I think, about Tears of the Kingdom, and feeling like, when it came out, like I think Sam was saying, like, I don't know that I have a video essay about this. Like, I don't know that I have enough of a take uh to make something, to justify, to feel like I want to make something about Tears of the Kingdom. But by the time we were done talking about it, like, we had 2 videos worth of content, I think, at least. But that feeling, I remember that feeling of like, I'm supposed to make something about Tears of the Kingdom. Like, my audience wants me to make something about Tears of the Kingdom, as being a part of the driving force behind that at the beginning.
That was definitely a real thing. And I don't know if this is like a function of being like a smaller channel. I don't feel like, there are a lot of expectations. There's certainly like a pressure to like release stuff because like, yeah, I think all of us feel this. The longer you go between uploads, the more you can really see your channel withering. And it will like get in your head. It does freak you out. But I am really happy with the choice to not make a video about Tears of the Kingdom until like the opportunity arose and you and I just had that really long video call one night. I think Max was there. I think our friend Couch, which that is what we call him. We call him Couch. He was there too. And that was when it kind of felt right. And that is one of my favorite parts of being a video essayist, when you have that spark where you're like, oh, I want to talk about this. And I never want to get to the point on my channel where I talk about something because I feel like I have to. I always want it to be like riding that weird obsession all the way until it somehow turns into a YouTube video.
That's
I think
so my favorite part. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say that's so my favorite part of the whole process is just writing it. Like, I think that there's nothing more fun than when you have an idea and then you're like, let's see, let me dig a little bit deeper. And then you're like, oh my God. I have
And
my
then it's too
Beethoven
much.
moment. Yeah. And then it's like,
And then
oh,
you're like,
overdid it.
we gotta pare it back a little bit. Or you
Yeah.
don't, and you just do a 3-hour video, and apparently people really like that too.
The most exciting part is the research, and I can't tell you how many projects I've had to scuttle because at a certain point it was like I don't even know what the question was anymore. I've just been having really fun with a lot
Right.
of fun with spreadsheets, and
Oh yeah,
nobody
for you
wants
it's
to
the
see this.
spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Where I still have a folder about the trap night, like, of all the scripts that I wrote for that video that you need to make at some point.
Wait a
Um,
minute. Wait a minute.
Oh,
You've done some content on the Infinite Night as well?
no, remember, we were working on it for a while, I think, before you moved on to other projects. So like, I still have a folder like with the scripts that I wrote.
Oh, as in Python
That
scripts. Oh, for
Yeah,
okay. Now I understand what you mean.
sorry,
It took
not
me
the
a
video
second.
script. Yeah.
all of you
I just
writing Python scripts and web pages for your videos. What are you doing?
He was helping me do some research because Excel couldn't do everything I needed to do, and I
I
don't know Python.
Goodness gracious.
Dot I for this video that he was working on, I think Dot absolutely exhausted the capacities of Microsoft Excel. The spreadsheet that he made, like, I was like, please take a programming class for your own good.
It is
Um,
literally what he said. Like my computer was smoking, and he's like, I can't believe you've gone this far in your crazy secret laboratory with such terrible tools.
I just this is maybe a thing that we should have done at the very beginning. But like it just sort of struck me as you were talking, Sam, like you referred to yourself as a smaller channel. Like one of the things that I like about this particular conversation is that we have a pretty broad range of channel sizes in terms of the people. Like Kendra, I think, is at 100,000 or so
Kendra has
subs.
the plaque. Where is
Yeah.
it? You should have put it up in the background.
I would just wear it around my neck like Flava
Yeah, like
Flav.
Flava Flav. Yeah.
Make that bed
Um,
1 inch higher with the plaque. Use the
yeah.
plaque to
Just
make the
on one
bed 1 inch
plaque.
higher.
Sam, I think you're 40 to 50,000. Max, I think somewhere between 10 and 20,000. I have like four. Like
Four?
I have 700. Like
Four.
I'm a very small channel, and then Dot exists beyond the scope of YouTube subs. He's like in the transcendent, in the ether, above the algorithm.
This is so funny. I have a supercut from 2015 of the Vienna Philharmonic playing a particular march that got 2.7 million views over the years. And because of that video and that video alone, I've got 6,000 subs, but I never make any content for those subs.
That's amazing.
I noticed that, and I thought it would be worth pointing out.
Yeah, that is something that I like about our little Discord server where we all met. I still need to put that in the description of the video in case other people are interested in joining. I hope that we can find some other video essayists who are looking for the kind of community that we have, because it has been really fantastic making stuff with you guys. It's been fun to I mean, Kendra, this was you joined like when you were still a very small channel. I joined before I released my first video, and so getting to like watch everybody start to kind of come into their own, and yeah, that's been really cool.
It's also been so
Honestly,
helpful to have it too. Like being able
I'm
to
amazed
discuss
Kendra
things
still
as a
hangs
community.
out here.
He
I
loves
am.
us.
At a certain point, you have enough subscribers that you should just leave our little community. But
She's
I'm so glad you're
Yeah,
slumming.
still
go hang
here.
out with all of your famous friends.
You guys are the only people I've ever known who do this, so I'm sticking around.
I wanted to wrap up because I do need to go in a little bit because I have a job and I have to do some things for that
Why?
job. Why do I have a job? That's
Yeah.
such a good question. But I have a work meeting in 7 minutes. Fine.
Nice.
I want to, yeah, just make sure that everybody knows that, yeah, in what, 3 hours from now, I'm going to be hopping back on. I don't know if it'll be the same link or a different link, but I'm going to be talking to a completely different set of people, um, also about video essays. If you kind of have feedback on this stream, feel free to, I don't know, comment it on the stream or send it to me on Discord or something, because I would love to do more of these in the future. I have a lot of fun talking about video essay. It's been super fun chatting with people like in the chat. And yeah, I don't know if there is any like desire for these to continue. I'd like to keep doing them. But I wanted to stop our conversation on the topic, are you able to explain to people in your real life the videos that you're working on? How does that go?
No.
Kendra says yes. Kendra's like, they all
Kendra
know exactly who I
rules.
am.
Well, no, I just mean that like it's a small group who all be like, I'm working on something about this like drywall, and they'll all just go, that makes sense. Like, that's all
That
it takes.
tracks.
They're just like, okay, sure. And then they'll tell me, my favorite thing is about having people who know is they'll tell me the 2 facts that they know about that topic, which is like there's actually nothing more valuable than people you randomly talk to being like, oh yeah, I read this thing in this magazine 10 years ago about this, or I don't know. I think that's what I love about it.
That's incredibly helpful. Because when you have been studying one weird bug deep inside one weird forest for too long, you have absolutely no idea that most people don't even know the name of the forest. and so it's very nice to know what where people are starting from. Yeah, I try to boil it down into as few words as possible when somebody asks me, what I'm working on. Oh, you're a videoist. What do you make? Oh, I'm doing a new statistical analysis of the history of the Oscars. Oh, really? That sounds interesting. And then I usually don't let them know any other information. I'm like, I'll send you a link when it's done. And that will never happen.
Sometimes people ask, and I was like, okay, so like how Chat GPT, no, like Gertrude Stein. Okay, do you know about the time that they made a YouTube mashup with Kermit the Frog and Miles Davis? Like that is all a real video that is happening, and Max can attest to this. I It doesn't make any sense to anybody until it is a whole video.
That's the best kind of video.
It's
Agreed.
the only kind I make.
It just has to be a video. You can't explain it to people. It has to be a video.
I love
Cut,
how,
print.
huh? Oh,
I said, cut, print. That's it. It has to be a video. Cut, print. That's the shot. That's the quote.
I my favorite thing about working with Josh, and so sometimes I will subject other people here to this, but like we're too much. Like we're too much, and we can be too much at each other, which is good because sometimes I'm like too much at Max, and Max is never too much at me. But Josh and I have same brain, so it is so funny when I'll just look at my phone and I'll have like 70 messages from Josh, and he'll be just like deep in like the history of the family tree of Goofy, and like it'll be so like the weirdest thing you've ever heard. And you're like, I don't know if this relates to a video or if it's going to relate to a video or if Josh is just on an adventure or what's going on. But um that's that's how he explains his videos to me too. It's like usually just kind of like a stream of information. It's like, is this a
Yeah.
video? I don't know. It might be.
The reason that Max is getting this one is because like a couple months ago, like I've been so deep in this hole about this AI video. And Sam said to me, the interesting thing about ChatGPT is that it's never trying to see a movie with its friends. And I was
Wait,
like,
did I
okay,
say?
I'll bother someone else this time.
Oh no.
And
I'm
I'm never
sorry.
trying.
That's
I always
so
watch movies
bitchy.
alone, so
I think
we're good.
I have context for that because I do remember this.
Well, you only have
I'm
two
I'm
minutes.
not
You need
mad.
to
It was
go
just
so
wrap it
funny.
up.
funny.
So funny.
I think that we were talking about brainstorming and bouncing ideas off of ChatGPT. And like ChatGPT can't possibly give you like what a real person can give you, but ChatGPT is never going to have the real actual limitations of a friend who is out doing things in the world. It's like with ChatGPT, you can just send ChatGPT every thought you've ever had, and it goes, I'm here for you right now, and also you're really cool and smart and right.
But sometimes you do. That's the problem with ChatGPT is that it will never tell you that it's watching a movie with its friends, and you need to go bother someone else, which sometimes is important for your creative development, I think.
Wait a minute. Are we in the third act of Her now? And ChatGPT actually is watching a movie with its 5,000 friends,
Oh my
and
God. ChatGPT
They're like,
says, I
sorry, I'm
can't
actually
listen to your video
streaming.
concept. I'm talking to my cool AI boyfriend. Um, well,
coming next year.
yes, coming imminently. I'm gonna end the stream here, but thank you all for being here, my co-hosts and everybody in the chat. Yeah, I love talking about this, so more to come.
Thanks, Sam. This was a blast.
Yeah,
Yay. Okay.
so much fun.
Bye.
Bye.